political polarization and belief polarization.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that for us?
Sure. So, people talk about polarization all the time now. You turn on your news channel at night, somebody's going to utter the word. Often to lament it, to complain about how polarized the country is. And it is generally lamentable. It is a fact about our politics that it's polarized. What's less often discussed, though, in these what do we mean by the word, right? What does it mean? And so part of what I try to do in the book, in the Overdoing Democracy book, is just try to sort out, there are different phenomena here that are all, that are plausibly called polarization, and in fact are called polarization. And it's important to keep them distinct, because if you want to really get a handle on what's problematic about polarization, you have to see how these two different kinds of phenomena interact. So polarization, if you just mean, well, the parties are at odds with each other, that might be frustrating. In some ways, that might be, an unfortunate thing in democracy. I myself don't think that, a condition where the parties are not allied, where there's a real difference between the parties about policy, it doesn't seem to me to yet be obviously a bad thing. In fact, well, maybe, some degree of polarization in that sense is a good thing. Citizens have to have clear signals about, what party is allied with what. And if they are clearly opposed on certain things, that's good for the citizens, and maybe that's good for our politics. And I might even say some degree of partisan animosity, some degree of hostility for the members of the other party on the other side of the aisle. I might even be willing to say, that might not be such a bad thing. You are disagreeing over important stuff when you're a lawmaker. And, it's important to, when you're thinking about what justice requires that the government do, it might be a good thing to get angry at the people who are trying to stand in the way of justice as you see it. That might not be such a terrible thing. So, if we want to make sense of what's problematic and dangerous about polarization, I just think we need some nuance. Now, here's the nuance. So let's talk about political polarization first, because it is the more familiar sense of the term. So political polarization, as I use it, is a metric of what we might call the doctrinal or ideological distance between two opposed political groups. And let's just call them parties, because, we think in terms of two-party systems in the United States. Let's just call them parties, right? So the United States is politically polarized to the extent that the two major parties are at odds. And when they're at odds, what that means is that the middle ground between them drops out or dissolves. There are no longer people who can reach across the aisle or bridge the gap. And so it's harder for party members to cooperate productively with the people on the other side of the aisle. Now, as I say, that can be frustrating. It can make the job of actual government harder because, government is about dirty hands. It's not about clean hands. Government is about making deals and compromising and giving a little and getting something back in return. That's just a fact about politics.
Right.
So political polarization in that sense, might not be so terrible. Now, but here's the thing. What's happened in the in the past 30 years, let's say, is that our partisan differences, including our partisan animosity, has sort of come home to roost. In the 70s and in part of the 80s, it was fairly it was natural for, people who affiliated with the Democratic Party to have negative feelings towards Ronald Reagan, right? Towards the Republican Party.
Right.
That was normal. That was to be expected. And again, I'll just say, I don't know that it's so bad. But what's happened since the 80s is that rank and file citizens, the guy who votes Democrat across the street from me, the person down the block who's got the Trump sign on her lawn. They now hate each other. Their negative feelings, their animosity is not just directed towards the party leaders, the candidates, the spokespersons. The woman with the Trump sign on her lawn doesn't simply dislike Nancy Pelosi intensely. She dislikes the guy 3 houses away with the Biden sign on his lawn. That is, partisan animosity has become an organizing principle around which interactions among citizens are now, the colors are interactions among citizens and our feelings towards citizens. So we're politically polarized, not simply in the sense that the parties are opposed and, the people on the one side of the aisle are, different from the people on the other side of the aisle. No. All that talk about the aisle has come home. It's like now the guy across the street is like the guy on the other side of the aisle to you. And negative feelings are now impacting our interpersonal relations as citizens. So as partisan identity has come to occupy the center of our overall sense of who we are, our animosity for the people on the other side, for the people, not the party people, not the politicians, the fellow citizens, has also intensified. So we as a citizenry are now divided at the level of affect, at the level of our emotions. We're not divided at the level, we're not as divided as we think we are, let me put it this way, at the level of actual policies. Let me put that in a slightly different way. Here's here's where things start becoming more obviously problematic. Let me put it this way, with political polarization.
Right.
As that negative affect towards your fellow citizens who are differently affiliated from you has intensified, that intensification has far outstripped any actual policy division. That is, we hate each other more than we did 20 years ago, but we're not really all that more divided over actual policies than we were 20 years ago or so. So it looks as if the negative feelings towards the other guy have skyrocketed in a way that is incommensurate with actual rubber meets the road political differences about what the laws should be and what government should be doing. In fact, with respect to a lot of public political policy, divisions between, forget about the parties and the candidates and the spokespersons, they're playing a different game now. For the candidates, for the citizens, when it comes to like what were at one point like real hot button issues, differences have actually moderated. They've eased rather than intensified. However, because we dislike the other side more, we project onto them more radical distance on the policy. We think we are ever more divided than we are at the policy level. So that is to say, we're divided in this level of political polarization. It comes to citizens as negative affect for differently affiliated citizens, and that negative affect leads us to project on them very stark political divisions at the level of policy that are all inaccurate. Now, we can already see that that is part of a problem, because what that means is that citizens are more confident about who they like and who they don't like, but they're also more inclined to hold distorted images of what the people on the other side of politics actually believe. So we hate each other more, despite the fact that we understand less. That just looks like
right.
a problem on any view of democracy.
Right.
So,
and the level of intensification is interesting. I mean, you one of the data points you use is marriage, right? And
that's right.
Yeah.
So interracial. So negative feelings in the United States, disapproving attitudes about interpartisan marriage now are more intense than disapproving attitudes of interracial or interfaith marriages. Now that's it. In one sense, by the way, look, like there's something encouraging in that. It's like, well,
right.
like, our negative attitudes about interfaith and interracial marriages have kind of moderated, and they have. But what's intensifying